Welcome to Daily Meditation with Sangha Live.
Hello, very warm welcome to everyone into this lovely Sangha Live session. And I hope this finds you well and as well as you can be. And once again, I'm really appreciating having the opportunity to see these lovely messages in the chat coming in. And it's a real sense of community and kind of a holding support that we create for each other here. So thank you for those who are sharing those messages there. And if you're not able to express in those ways through the chat, it's really lovely to have you here in whatever way you choose to be here. So we're going to continue with the theme of wise acceptance. And as I've mentioned before, there's, a sense with that of the opposites. So if there's wise acceptance, there can be, unwise acceptance, ways in which we accept things that aren't moving it forward, aren't relieving dukkha, stress, distress, suffering, and we might translate that word dukkha. And of course, it also opens up the possibility for perhaps wise non-acceptance, and of course, unwise non-acceptance. So I hope that that's not too odd an idea that we might be kind of opening to, but it's just something to kind of have within the field of our understandings here. Yeah. So I want to speak a little bit more about dukkha today. This central principle the Buddha would say, I teach one thing: freedom from dukkha. So what's dukkha? Freedom from stress, distress, suffering, ill-being, as Thich Nhat Hanh put it. Ill-being, not well-being. Liberating, the American teacher, who I think recognizes himself, he comes from kind of a hippie background, uses the term bummer. Dukkha means bummer. Well, that's a bummer. Right? From the Pali, the time of the Buddha, they were using this word to mean like when you get, they had wheels then, and when you get some kind of gunk stuck in the wheel, so you have these kind of greased joints where the wheels go round, and then you get a bit of grit, a bit of dirt in there, and it starts to grind and all of that kind of thing. So that's kind of dukkha. When things aren't smooth, when things aren't peaceful, when things aren't at ease. So, the agitation, the irritation. So dukkha, in a sense, can be many things. Stress and suffering, not exactly the same thing. Distress, ill-being, not exactly the same thing. It has a lot of dimensions. I want to take a translation of dukkha. It's a little bit more of a free translation, but it's implicit here. Reactivity. Yeah. So the dukkha is the reactivity. We might think about it as being dukkha is caused by reactivity, and I think that's a fair point. But the feeling of it is to be reactive. If we stop being reactive, there's a lot less dukkha. So the dukkha is the reactivity, as well as leads on from the reactivity, goes back towards the reactivity. Yeah. So there's a lot of things going on in terms of this, this dance here. But what we can say is, if there's more reactivity, there is more intense dukkha. And that will lead to, or trigger, or build more reactivity. Okay, so what's the path for us? What's the path for us? Oh, it's got to be lessening reactivity. There's got to be a part of that path. Yeah. So when the Buddha was looking through this, kind of like talks about the demand that we put on things. The demand that we put on things. What is that demand? It's the demand on things to make us happy, or at least to stop making us miserable. And, when that's really loud, we can kind of feel it through, greed, hatred, very profound amounts of reactivity. And oftentimes the Buddha would say greed, hatred, and delusion, or confusion. These are the fires that burn within the being, and express and lead to further dukkha. So we're going to come on to that delusion, that confusion, that misunderstanding in a moment, but just a little bit more. So subtly, the condition that goes with dukkha, you get it there in the Four Noble Truths, which I'm sure many of you will be very, very familiar with. The second Noble Truth is asking, okay, what's this dukkha leaning on, supported by, growing from, being alongside, like a friend that's supporting it? What is it? It's kind of thirsting for things, to solve our dukkha. Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't be so stressed if it were like this. I wouldn't be so stressed if that wasn't here. What can I get? What can I get rid of that'll do something about all this dukkha I'm experiencing? And the Buddha turned it around and asked, is it actually this thirsting, easing, or adding to the dukkha? This actual thirsting, this reactivity of, things should be able to do it for me, right? And so actually, I think you find it's the thirsting, it's the demanding, right? And for us, I think the second noble truth, like, what is this dependent on, is there in this kind of wise acceptance, the second aspect of wise acceptance. So we accept this is here, there's dukkha, and we accept it must be dependently arising. That's what the whole of the teachings are saying. It must be coming into being because of something else as well. And perhaps I play a part in that. It's likely I play a part in that. And then I accept the invitation to play a part. Okay? So the Buddha is saying, realize there is a misunderstanding here. And if you investigate your experience clearly, you'll see there's something here. So step one of the Dharma, let's say, for today at least, step one of the Dharma is realize there is a misunderstanding. Okay. And once we realize there's a misunderstanding, we have to accept that we may have things profoundly wrong. We may have things profoundly wrong. So think about an example of where you got what you really felt that you needed to get. Yeah. Or we finally got rid of something and we felt, enormous relief from that. Enormous relief. So when we get what we want, whether that's the elimination of what we don't want or the attainment of what we do want, whether that's aversion resolved or greed resolved through a change in the circumstances, a change in what we have near us, do you notice that it feels to us like it was that did it? It was that did it. And because of that, we then go outward looking for more releases for that feeling of, it's not quite right yet. Okay. But the Buddha says, look here, look under this. Was it the thing? Was it the thing? Do you really think that the thing, even the circumstance, this being this way or that way, do you think that that's what contains the satisfaction? And this is an enormous question, right? Maybe a little early in the morning for this enormity of a question, but carry it with you through the day. Do you really think this thing contains satisfaction? To say, I really like this cup. Yeah, it's a nice cup. It's fine. Okay, let's say it's beautiful. The best cup I've ever seen. Like someone else had this cup, and I thought, oh, I really want this cup. If I get this cup, it'll look so good on my desk. I feel really good about this. If I think for a moment that there's actually satisfaction in this cup, baked in, crafted in, no, it can't be. It comes from me. I bring the satisfaction. If I understand, and the cup is a very simplistic example, but can I understand, because the whole Dharma hinges on this, that the release of the satisfaction came in the moment of releasing the thirst, quietening the demand, opening the palm of attention, allowing the kindness through. It was the lessening of my reactivity expressed through, I've got to get this, I must have this, or that can't be, I've got to get rid of it. So does that make sense? Does that make sense? That's where the happiness comes from. The happiness comes from within when we lessen the reactivity. Okay, this is what the whole principle of the Dharma hinges on, but we want that acceptance to be wise, right? Not, oh, I'll just give that up, but actually I'm going to act in different ways that are really, really profoundly liberating. So can we accept that we might have things profoundly wrong? Can we accept that? Can our wise acceptance come there? And not, I'm an idiot, or we're all idiots, or, why did we evolve this way? But just, okay, there might be a different way. Would we agree that we might be one of the players in our stress, in our distress, in our agitation? Not responsible for it. And I'm going to come on to a more nuanced view of the world tomorrow. Right? The world's not perfect, and then we're just, the awkward one. Right? There's a lot of changes we maybe have to make in our world, in our society, in our cultures, and all of those things. Right? But can we be responsible to it, not make it worse? Right? Not make it worse. Seeing that we play a key role, a key part in agitation and reactivity when we believe that things are pleasant or unpleasant from their own side, that they can do it for us. Things can do it for us. The accepted belief, which we probably don't ever remember deciding to accept, things can do it for us. Right? That gets us into trouble. Then there's a more peaceful way to be, right? A kinder, more spacious, more enjoyable way to be. And that's what we've been seeing the relief of over the days, right? Being more spacious, that open palm, being more kind, all of those things. And let's lean more on the kindness factor. So first, we have to accept there is reactivity here now. Yeah? Have to accept there's reactivity here. If we can't accept it's like this, there are no further moves for us. There's reactivity here. If, I sometimes share this image of the Buddha coming to break us out of prison, we're like, no, totally fine, mate. Comes up through the ground and this way, come on, there's a way out of this. No, totally fine. There's nothing more to do here. I'm just accepting my situation as it is, right? But we have to accept that there's reactivity, and we have to accept we play a part. Our acceptance that there is reactivity need not extend to accepting it will continue. Accepting it will continue. Yeah? We're not asked to accept that there has to be more of it, because we can have a lot less. We can have a lot less. And that is the message of the precious, peaceful ones. Peaceful ones say, you have to accept, but you don't have to accept it's going to continue. Yeah. And if you have any questions about this, I will now open the question and answer area. So you can ask a question, you can push back on any of the ideas and things like that, but I'm not going to respond to things as I'm just explaining these points. If you disagree with anything that I'm saying, it's completely fine with me. We can talk it through, we can explain what I'm saying. My position is very nuanced around this, but if you have something to add, I'm happy for it to become more nuanced. Yeah. So it starts with acceptance. There is reactivity. We have to accept that we are reactive beings. Yeah. And that our activity can ease it even more. Right. It's not in the thing that the happiness comes. So is there some way of relating to this that actually allows a much wider appreciation, enjoyment, peaceful interaction, beauty, kindness, all of those things can come in more, and they are way more beautiful than attachment to things. Way more, way more. That's what these teachings are saying. We have to accept. That's part of it, isn't it? So for me, this is wise acceptance. We are wise to our part in it. And we did this work yesterday, easing contraction, playing with energy, the open palm of attention. I think, for me, much more enjoyable ways of being than being tight, feeling that, you just got to accept the energy as it is, all of those kind of things. And this has kindness implicit in it, just as mindfulness has kindness baked in. Bringing your kind attention to something. You bring your attention, there's an act of kindness. It's generosity, it's beauty. And today we'll make that more explicit. So there are some things that seem pleasant. Can we accept them, allow them to arise, allow them to pass through, allow them to exist in attention slowly? Oftentimes that just skims through. It's going slow motion again. When something's painful, can we meet that with care, with kindness? To allow ourselves and this to become closer. Breathe into it, breathe around it. Yeah. Knowing that things can get subtler and more open than just kind of surface level acceptance. It's like this. Actually, can we come in to a much more kind and beautiful relationship to things that actually speaks of lessening the reactivity. Yeah. And then see what unfolds. So let's have a good half hour or so of practice, and also meaning maybe a little longer, where we can settle into this, settle our dust, as Lao Tzu used to say. Soften your glare, untie your knots. So finding what is for you an enjoyable posture, comfortable posture that's also going to support being wakeful, being sensitive. I'm just seeing in this moment, okay, the body's like this right now. Need to change it in any way initially. Let's just have a check through, checking with the heart. The heart feels open or closed at this time. Feels tender or resilient. Don't need to change it. First, it's like this right now. Notice there's a temptation. I should fix that. I should get it. Okay, first acceptance. Notice how the intellect is, the thinking, the activity. Maybe there's underlying emotions, but recognizing, is it busy or quiet? Is it going towards wanting more or wanting less? Let's just have 3 breaths. See if the attention is interested and able to follow 3 breaths all the way through. So we have a kind of a sense of how we're doing, how the body is, how the heart is in this moment, how the intellect, the activity of thinking and emotions, and also a sense of how attention is. Is attention right there in the breath, attentive, or is it a little more dispersed, distracted? And it doesn't sum us up, but it gives us a sense of the moment. It's like this right now. And that's a helpful thing to see, a helpful thing to accept. Okay, it's like this right now. But also I don't need to accept it's going to stay like this. It's going to change. It's almost certainly going to change. And it will change through the practice, as we'll see towards the end of the practice when we check in again. Seeing are there any adjustments we'd like to make to this body posture, allowing that sense of the spine to be noticed, any elongation, opening of the spine, feeling how the spine connects down into the hips, and just letting those hips roll forwards, letting the knees be above the hips, opening that space for the belly, allowing that belly to soften into that space. Opening up through the spine, up towards the shoulders, feeling that connection between the spine and the chest, and opening up that chest area that we might also call the heart area. Wriggling the neck to open out the shoulders. How does it feel with the chest area or the heart area having more space? Shoulders back a little bit. Finding a comfortable place to rest the hands so that that area is supported to be open. Hands can become like an anchor pulling us down. Resting them on the thighs or on a pillow on the lap can help keep the shoulders from rolling forwards, collapsing the chest, collapsing the belly. It'd be helpful to have some space in the core. And then coming up the spine, it's as if pulled up by a string, pulled along by a string if we're reclining, tucking the chin if that's helpful, easeful. And then just checking if we're not leaning too much to the left or right, thinking less about the external way we look and more about the internal way we feel a sense of balance, a sense of alignment. Particularly if we noticed that the mind was quite scattered, struggled to meet 3 breaths, let's see if we can just meet the first moments, very first moments of the next 3 breaths. And notice in any moment the attention can be too tight or too loose. Face can be quite soft and the attention can be quite intense. And sometimes the face can be very rigid, it feels like we're concentrating, but the attention's too flittery. So it's finding how much relaxation in the body, but also energy into the attention, whatever that might mean for you. More a sense of going towards, or more a sense of receiving. If you're not used to receiving, you can try that in the next 3 in-breaths, all the way through, really like we're receiving these breath sensations into conscious awareness. So you may recognize in this a sense of goodwill, a sense of what we call metta, goodwill, kindness, welcoming in the breath. It's welcome in and through the out breath. Allowing the out breath to express and be released. So in the teachings, we offered these Brahma Viharas, these abodes of the gods, as attitudinal resonances or atmospheres of attention that we can allow things to appear and disappear in, and they have a lot less reactivity. So we're practicing now this one, the goodwill, metta, divine abode of kindness, of goodwill. How does it feel to meet a breath with kindness? Or if we're practicing with the sounds, to allow the sounds to appear and disappear. The sense of welcoming, allowing, and releasing. Like we would welcome and allow and release, of course, a friend who visits. Bringing that same attitude to the next three in-breaths, all equivalent in the sound. So the mind might wander at times, and come back to this sense of welcoming, allowing, releasing what's here. It's here in the body. We'll come on to shortly a creative and supportive way of meeting what's painful, but just for those who might be noticing, there's a kind of enjoyment in just breathing, just listening to the sounds, simplicity there. Happiness comes from appreciation. Can't be a moment of enjoyment without some appreciation. We can actively appreciate that we can breathe, that we can feel the breath, sense the breath. In a way, breathing is a wonder of the world. If it's possible for you, can you appreciate breathing, appreciate sensing breathing, appreciate having the time to sense breathing, whatever dimension of experience, and as close to the direct experience of breathing or listening to sounds. This is another of the Brahma Viharas, the appreciation that leads to joy. So appreciating also a little rest between parts, appreciating that we can soften the body, really allowing appreciation to blend into the attention. So sometimes in this practice, you can notice actually there's this lessening of reactivity, and simple things can really begin to open up. There's a whole world within the breath. It can be a whole world within, say, the sensations in the palm of the hands. kind of a vitality. That when we meet that with attention, if the attention is refined enough, steady enough, it can feel very pleasant. Meeting that with appreciation is quite profound. Attention expands, adds layers, dimensions to what it attends to. Like lying in the grass and seeing all the details in a blade of grass. Attention reveals, expands, adds detail to what it attends to. If there's any sense of well-being in the being, what happens when we attend to that, breathe with that? Just from the level of okayness, not too bad. See how it's transformed by an appreciative attention. So maybe this is supportive for you in the practice, bringing the attention to the overlooked, allowing them to expand in this kind and appreciative attention. But let's practice a little bit with another delightful abode of the gods, Brahma Vihara, the one of compassion. Compassion to what is felt to be not okay, not all right. Very likely even less accepted, allowed, welcomed into consciousness. So if we're in the body sphere of attention, maybe there's somewhere that feels tight or blocked. Maybe don't go to the most challenging area, but even there it's okay because we're going to relate differently. But don't leap in there quite yet, just recognizing there might be somewhere. Similarly with the sounds, if there's any sense of unpleasantness, irritation, annoyance about some sound, you can practice there. So first you'll notice this sensation, this area feels unpleasant, as if it's unpleasant from its own side. And we're going to question a little bit that opinion. But first let's come to the outer reaches of it, where if you expand around it, and that can include, outside of the body sense, because you might notice, it's actually kind of bigger, surrounds around the body. We can open out that sense of the energy around the body, the atmosphere of attention around this sound or this sensation. Where does it become kind of neither unpleasant or not really pleasant either, so gone into another area. We're around this sensation, but not at the heart of it. We're looking for an area that feels like I can be there, I can allow already. And imagine as the next breaths occur, as the listening occurs, it's an atmosphere of allowing, caring. Yeah, this is a reason to be met with kindness and care. And allowing that kindness and care to soothe. Breathe into this area, right out there, right out at the periphery. See what that does to the sensations. You're accepted, cared for. You may notice that you feel kind of drawn in more towards the heart of this appearance in consciousness that feels a little unpleasant or very unpleasant, but just coming to that edge of maybe where it feels, yeah, it is actually unpleasant here. What happens if we really accept and allow there, breathe into this area? And you don't have to get to the center of the pain or the unpleasant sound or sensation, but just seeing when we lessen the reactivity, bringing on more allowing and care, how things change. Not planning to get rid of it, just seeing how our attitude and attention and atmosphere changes what appears. So if the mind is wandering away from this practice, then bringing it back to kindness, to the breath sensations, 3 breaths, all of those practices always available. May be helpful to remain in this area if the tension's a little bit wobbly. 3 breaths around this atmosphere of pain. That doesn't feel like too much juggling. Take quite a refined attention to meet these experiences, so we can utilize the 3 breaths principle here as well. You might notice it responds more to an in-breath or an out-breath. But both directions is allowing, accepting, and bringing care, being care. And you may find it's possible to breathe towards the heart of this unpleasantness, or even through it. Again, as an offering of compassion and care, not to fix, eliminate, control. And then coming back to the whole of the body. How's the body doing now? A sense of welcoming, allowing of the whole of the body. And how is the heart feeling right now? Between tender and resilient, open and closed. Not a judgment. And how's the intellect, the activity of thinking? How does that seem to you now? And breathing through all of this for 3 breaths. It's like this right now. We might cast our heart, mind, bodies back half an hour earlier when it was like this, right then. A different this. So if there's anything that you've cultivated that feels supportive, keeping it going, maybe even keeping it growing as we transition from the stillness and the silence into this shared space.
Today's podcast is an offering to you from our archive of freely available live daily classes. We make wisdom teachings and meditations as freely available as possible to as many people as wish to practice. You can help ensure we can continue to support a worldwide Sangha by leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts, by sharing this with someone who'd be interested, and by offering a small financial support at sangha.live/donate.